Boxing truth here. Just some idea about Chris Eubank Jr.'s next move in his career. It's not something I would consider or even would advise. Something I don't even like. Eddie Hearn put the idea out there of what's being talked about for Eubank Jr.'s next move. Eddie Hearn still has Jr. under contract to match him for at least one more fight, and Eddie he's been letting his father Barry Hearn handling Jr.'s situation with his next fight, as Eddie Hearn's taking a back seat, just laying back and letting his father handle the situation. Oh, what's next for Eubank Jr.? Now, Eddie Hearn's talking about that the Eubanks, they want to do another British title defense, and it's disappointing. They're talking about a fight with the mandatory challenger to his belt, the British title, Tommy Langford. And it's not a fight Eubank Jr. really needs. That fight does nothing for him. Being a British champion doesn't bring much commercial value. You don't make big dollars to defend that title. And it's going to be a purse bid very shortly if Matchroom, Eubank's promoter, and Langford's promoter, which is a rival promoter of Eddie Hearn's, Queensberry Promotions, Frank Warren, don't make a deal. Now, according to Eddie Hearn, the war between them is not officially over. Even though they've had discussions, it still doesn't mean they can make a deal regarding this fight. So potentially, Eddie Hearn could get outbidded for this fight by Frank Warren, potentially. And Eubank Jr. will have to fight on another network, or another rivals promoter's card, where it could favor the challenger and Tommy Langford. Now, Eubank Jr., he really shouldn't take this fight. It does nothing for him. Langford is undefeated. He's still untested, but I think Eubank Jr. can handle him, but it's just not a fight really that's worth taking. He ain't going to make a lot of money. He's going from being considered as a Golovkin opponent and made a huge mistake. Well, his father did. His father fucked up the deal. He went from going from getting millions of pounds to fight Golovkin to another domestic level opponent for much less. And a guy who's lanky, tall, can box a little bit, is kind of sharp, throws combinations. Not the biggest puncher, but stylistically it could be, it won't be an easy fight. And Langford said he's had success with Eubank in sparring, so it's time for Junior to step up, man. Let's get out of the domestic level. Let's go on to the world-class level. Let's fight a Golovkin leftover, whatever. Let's fight a name opponent, a guy who's challenged for a world title. There's no point in taking this fight, especially a Frank Warren promoted fighter, where he could outbid your promoter, and you have to end up fighting on his show, on his network, Box Nation, and pretty much on his turf. So potentially it could be a risky move for Junior to defend his British title again against a Frank Warren promoted fighter. And we all know how Frank Warren feels about Eubank Jr. He's looking to make that fight happen. He feels Langford could trash Eubank Jr. and pretty much end the Eubank story. So we'll see how this situation plays out. I think Eubank Jr. should just trash that British title in the garbage. Get rid of it. Doesn't really do nothing for him financially. He's fulfilled his goal of becoming a British title. He defended it once. Now it's time to go big game hunting. Let's go after some name opponents that are still available. Curtis Stevens is calling Eubank Jr. out. A Golovkin leftover. A guy who's challenged for a world title, has some experience, and is coming off a pretty good win where he was a huge underdog. Well, was an underdog. Dangerous fight, a puncher, but it'll be a good, interesting fight. Especially on the undercard of a Golovkin Brook event bill. So that'll be an interesting fight. David Lemieux is still available. He's still looking for an opponent. Billy Joe Saunders still doesn't have an opponent. But he most likely will fight on the Canelo undercard. I'm hearing Gabe Rosado, even David Lemieux, hearing a bunch of names. Curtis Stevens claims Saunders turned him down as well. So there's other fights available out there for Junior. Better fights. Andy Lee's out there. He's still looking for an opponent. Let's take on a name fighter, a former world champion, a guy with some experience. Let's get out of this domestic level where you're not really getting the type of financial rewards for defending a British title. Let's stop fighting at that level and, move on to bigger and better things. And then maybe you'll be in discussions for the winner of Golovkin-Brook because you still have a following. You still bring a fan base, economic muscle for that fight to, generate big numbers for a potential fight with the GGG Brook winner. And fighting Tommy Langford, it's just, he could probably take him, but it could be a risky fight. Guy's tall, lanky, boxes, promoted by Frank Warren. What if Eddie Hearn doesn't win the purse bid? What if they can't make a deal willingly between the two parties, Frank Warren, Eddie Hearn? Then it ends up going to a purse bid, and then Eddie Hearn loses the purse bid. Then Junior will put himself at a disadvantage fighting on a Frank Warren promoted type card and show. So, a lot to think about for the Eubank Jr. team. You would hope he would, start gunning for better opponents, better names, guys with name recognition, guys with a little more experience, guys that are considered world class. But according to Eddie Hearn, they're talking about another British title defense, and it's very disappointing. I don't think they should fight this Langford kid. There's nothing in it for Eubank Jr. No money. Won't get much props if he beats him, and he'll still be at the same level, just defending his British title against domestic level competition. No progression, no improvements, no climbing the rankings. Just pretty much staying at the same level. And that's something all the fans of Eubank are waiting for him to step up, to show that, to make us look right, to prove that he is a world-class fighter. He shows a lot of potential in the gym, a lot of potential. He works very hard, looks good in the gym. He definitely shows a lot of promise in his fights. He's dominated his most recent competitions, coming off knockout wins, but not against the best available opponents in the middleweight division. It's time to step up, bro. Enough of this bullshit with the British title. Let that shit go. Fuck Tommy Langford and move on to bigger, better things. There's other opponents out there looking for some action as well, some fights. There's Golovkin leftovers. There's former world title challengers. There's former world champions like Andy Lee. The Saunders rematch is still there. Let's start gunning for these fights, bro. But we'll see what's next for Eubank Jr. This is Boxing Truth. I'm out.